co-chairperson, Ms. Shepherd, Dr. Register, and fellow board members. Our report tonight begins with the TMAC activity held January 23rd at Antioch High School. TMAC students conducted a fishbowl activity where the goal is to keep the value log relevant in moving about the topics. They brainstormed ideas which resulted in 4 topics: bullying, respect, support, and encouragement. General concerns of life. Each student gave one personal concern. I now give it to Aiden.
Thank you, Marquetta. Good evening. Our report continues with TMAC events. Our January meeting provided an interactive activity charting the impact of the high school academy experiences. When asked one question, what academy experience has been the best for you? Some of the responses were this: specific teacher support, learning how to run our own company, hands-on activities, the research in medical science, learning how to write memos and business letters. Our next meeting is scheduled for February 28th. We will be presented to TMAC and ask for opportunities to visit their schools as well. We will also continue the interactive dialogue around college preparation and school resources. Thank you all for allowing us this time to provide our report.
Thank you very much. And if you wouldn't mind making sure that Ms. Hawkins gets a copy of your report so it can be added to the meeting minutes. Thank you. Ms. Thompson?
On December 19th, Metro School's longtime employee, Sherry Force, lost her 4-month battle with cancer. Ms. Force worked at Granbury Elementary as a general assistant, but to the school and surrounding community, she contributed much more than the title would allow. Ms. Force supervised the cafeteria and started the school's award-winning recycling program. In 1989, under her leadership, Granbury Elementary embarked on a recycling program that has garnered national and state recognition time and again over the past 23 years. Every Saturday over this 23-year period, Ms. Force met students and community recyclers at the school recycling drop-off from 9 to noon in the Granbury parking lot. Every day through the holiday seasons, through the summers, Ms. Force could be counted on to be present and serve as a positive influence for our school community. In the cafeteria, Sherry taught students about being good stewards of the earth by learning to separate food waste and by recycling their plastic and paper food packaging. Granbury students often return to the Saturday drop-off as young adults, having grown up recycling and knowing their efforts do make a difference in the world. Ms. Force will be missed, not only as an employee, but also as a friend to the community. Granbury is currently working with community partners to create a network of supporters to sustain its recycling program. The school will honor Ms. Force and her memory on Earth Day, Monday, April 22nd. The Director of Schools, along with the Metropolitan Nashville School Board, is cordially invited to attend as we celebrate the life of a wonderful employee. And if we could just have a moment of silence in her honor, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into awards and recognitions, we are going to rearrange the agenda ever so slightly. As most of you are aware, today there is a House Bill 702 that was presented to the legislature in regards to charter authorizers. And I think this is a good opportunity to get an update on how that went and see what this board has to say or think about that. So, Dr. Register, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll say just a few brief words of introduction and then turn it over to board members to speak. This is House Bill 702 that was passed in the subcommittee this afternoon by a vote of 6-3. It was late. It was just before the board meeting started. Substantively, what this amendment to the House bill does is it allows charter applicants to apply for charter school status in 2 ways. One, as has been in the past, directly to the LEA, to you, to the Board of Education. But a second approach now has been proposed in this amendment that allows a charter applicant to apply directly to the State Board of Education given certain circumstances. And I won't get into discussing the detail of that except to say that there are 2 districts in Tennessee that to which this amendment will apply, and they are Shelby County Schools and Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools. If the charter is approved by the State Board of Education directly by bypassing the local Board of Education, the result is that there is no local input into approving the charter, and that charter becomes part of a state school system, not a part of the local education association. So we have no responsibility for oversight. We do have responsibility for funding, however, and I won't go on. I haven't had an opportunity to really study in detail this legislation, the implications. I think what I've said is accurate, but I think it's noteworthy to say that this bill rolled out yesterday and was heard in subcommittee today and approved today. Very fast process. I would say that we responded pretty quickly with having some people who were present there, but I want to also recognize the fact that 2 board members were there this afternoon during this hearing, and that's Jill Spearing and Amy Frogue. So I want to turn it over to conversation now for other board members to get your reaction. I thank you for giving us the opportunity to put this out early in the board meeting tonight. I know that we don't have TV media here at this point in time, except that we are on our own live broadcast, and we're also doing live broadcast today. But we wanted to not let this media opportunity go by without informing the general public of this. So, Madam Chair, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Register. And I will echo your sentiments and thank Ms. Frogue and Ms. Spearing tremendously. From what all reports I've heard, Ms. Frogue, you did a fantastic job speaking at the hearing today. And I think it's unfortunate that, as you said, Dr. Register, I found out about this bill yesterday afternoon about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And it was very rapidly pushed through, unfortunately. So I will give board members an opportunity to weigh in. Keep in mind that we do have an additional agenda that we need to get through, but I wanted to present this opportunity in case anyone had any questions or comments that they needed to raise. Ms. Frogue, we'll start with you since you were actually on the Hill today.
Thank you. I actually have a lot of comments to make, so I'll try to make them fairly brief. I did have an opportunity to speak today before the committee. I, too, have been very disturbed by the way the bill was rolled out. I heard about it first time yesterday at 4 o'clock. We have had parents trying to get in to speak before the subcommittee for 2 weeks. And in a meeting this morning, we were told no one would be able to speak about the bill. Luckily, a member of the subcommittee recognized us, and so I was able to make some comments. And I'm not going to read all of them, but I just want to hit some highlights because I think there are a lot of important points to be made about this bill. One of the things that I pointed out is that I represent, I think, a silent majority of people who are in my district who are very much opposed to this type of legislation, so much so that they have organized against it in vouchers and have put together pretty strong efforts to oppose legislation like this. And as I told the legislative committee, I know they're hearing from a lot of people here who have paid a lot of money to be involved in this dialogue here in Tennessee, and I hope that they are willing to consider the comments of those of us who will be directly impacted by the bill, which would be, of course, parents and our school districts. It was very difficult for me to have a voice in this discussion today. The main point that I made at the hearing today is that in Davidson County, we have a very good record of high-performing charter schools. We are exceeding the national average in performance. The national average for performance for charter schools outperforming traditional schools is only 17%. We are far above that average. We are also exceeding the national average in the number of approvals of charter schools that we grant. I think that we have shown that we as a district are very open to innovation, and I think that we have demonstrated that we are good managers of our charter schools. We have good relationships with our charter schools, and I think this bill would undermine that because it would create sort of a shotgun marriage between us and the state. And we really, to have successful schools, really need to have collaboration. Unfortunately, I think that this, even though this is not cited as a reason, this bill really has grown out of a disagreement that we had last fall about the quality of one particular charter school. We all know a lot about that, so I won't go into that. But the only grossly underperforming school that we have right now, charter school, is a school that the state forced us to open, and I think that's notable. I think we are doing a pretty good job on our own. And the other point that I made is that I believe that a law like this would place an undue financial burden on our city. We are continuing to pay the 2/3 of the cost of charter schools as we do other schools. And the charter schools that we have here are not at capacity, they're not full. So we're paying for charter schools and we're paying for our traditional system. If we were to end up with a large number of charter schools that imposed on us, that would impact our finances. So that's sort of a summary of what I said at the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hayes, any comments?
Sure. I too was surprised to receive this email a couple hours ago and haven't had a tremendous amount of time to react or to study the legislation. I am probably the only person here who has spoken out for a statewide authorizer. Although I signed a resolution against it, as we commonly would sign and support our fellow board members. I did vote against that resolution when it was when we first passed it. From the bit of information I've been able to glean from this today, there is a tremendous amount that is missing as this bill is contemplated from anything that could be deemed a success as far as a statewide authorizer. There's no accountability structure. There's not. I think that perhaps the folks that are behind this bill have underestimated what the impacts of a statewide authorizer could be, both to the state and to MNPS. It's a significant undertaking to receive applications, to evaluate the applications, to authorize them, and to manage the process. And none of this is contemplated within the bill that's been passed. If the state is serious, if the legislature is serious about this bill, I certainly am one that would encourage them to talk with our Office of Innovation to really gain a full understanding of how complicated it is to authorize and to manage and hold schools accountable, and feel that all of that language is missing from this 4-page document. So at my core, I'm somebody who believes that there could be a valid path forward for a statewide authorizer, but don't believe that this bill has quite gotten there.
Thank you. Mr. Pinkston?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to our Advocacy Committee Chair for representing on the Hill today. Thank you, Ms. Frogue. I guess we knew something like this might be coming, and I think it's regrettable. The same way I think it's important for us to listen to the state, I also think it's important for the state to listen to us. Our work is their work and vice versa. I'm kind of tired of the whole thing. I'd like for us to just start working together. However, if the legislature in its zeal wants to go down this path, and I'm personally ready to fight over this one, I've worked in and around state government for 20 years, and my view is this is just flat bad policy. Regardless of what anyone thinks about the idea of a state authorizer or circumventing local school boards. There are just a bunch of other questions about the specific approach that they're contemplating up there. The first is, I wonder if it's constitutionally suspect. As recently as November, a federal judge in Shelby County took a step toward essentially voiding a state law that lifted the prohibition on new special school districts because the law applied only to Memphis and Shelby County. So how the legislature thinks it can do this on the heels of that failed policy in a federal court intervention is a little surprising to me. Second, I wonder what, if any, precedent there might be for the state to essentially confiscate local taxpayer dollars without the school board or the Metro Council's consent. It's one thing for the state to drop a new policy or regulation on local jurisdictions, but it's something entirely different to take local resources without local consent. And if the state wants to get in the business of running schools, I say have at it, but take 100% of the responsibility for it, financial and otherwise. So based on this, very unprecedented step that the legislature, in its wisdom, and I use that term loosely, is taking, then I think we need to step back and examine our options. I'm not a fan of litigation, as you all know, but this is one where, if our hand is being forced, I think this has the potential to have long-lasting negative repercussions. So, Madam Chair, Dr. Register, fellow board members, I'd like to get some legal analysis sooner rather than later so that we understand what our options could be.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkston. Ms. Shepherd.
I'll be very succinct in my comments. I too was surprised at it, but this morning I took the opportunity to email each and every person on the Education Subcommittee and to tell them two very succinct things. First of all, that the citizens of these two counties should be outraged because they have taken away the voting citizens' right to make a decision as to who they want to make local decisions on the school board. We were all elected to do that, and they're taking that right away from the voting citizens of those two counties. And secondly, I view this personally as an unfunded mandate.
Thank you. Ms. Kim, any comments? Ms. Barron?
Yes, thank you. This legislation gives the State Board of Education the power to authorize charter schools in Tennessee with no appeals process. This bill eliminates the power of the local control. When you eliminate the power of the local Board of Education, you eliminate the voice of the people and by their elected officials. As Ms. Frog said, there's at least one school in Nashville who sought a charter. We did not approve that charter. They appealed to the state, and that decision was overturned, and now that school is one of the lowest performing schools in Nashville. We know our schools best. That authority needs to stay with the local board. If this bill right now has passed the subcommittee, and if it continues, it will have tremendous financial negative effects and complete loss of control of our schools in Nashville. Excuse me. As Ms. Frog also said, we have had a long history of innovation through our charter schools, and the ones we have approved have been very successful. As elected board, I agree with board member, I agree with Will, that it's our constitutional right to be the voice of the people whom we represent. This legislation strips of us of that right and that responsibility. It was interesting today to hear House Representative Pitts, who was supportive of us, and suggested that if this legislation is good enough for Nashville and Memphis, then it ought to be good enough for the whole state. So why are we being singled out? So yeah, I think we need to. I'm up in arms about it as well, Will, and I think we need to move forward if this continues down this path. Thank you.
Dr. Brandon, any comments?
I just wanted to thank each of you for attending the session this afternoon, and I agree with my colleagues wholeheartedly.
Nothing, Dr. Jennifer?
Nothing new.
Okay. I'll make one comment, and then we will move on with the agenda. To say that I am perturbed by this is an understatement, an extreme understatement, because I think the one thing that continues to get lost in legislation is our children, and that bothers me more than anything else. we've all had our say, and we all know what this piece of legislation says. But what it doesn't say is who's going to care for the children when or if this does not work out. Who's going to have to pick up the pieces of their educational lives if this does not work out. And we've seen, as you both, several of you have mentioned, that we've got a school right now that was authorized by the state, and that's not working out. And so now we have to look at what's going to happen with our children, and that's the one thing that needs to be kept in mind. And unfortunately, when poor legislation like this comes to light, the last thing that is being considered is the children. So we will, I'm sure, have a lot more to say about this in the coming weeks. So I'm sorry, Ms. Froh.
I'm sorry, I just want to say one more thing before we move on. Just since this is a public forum, the parents that have organized in my district, it really is a truly grassroots movement. They're taking no funding because they don't want to be beholden to anyone or have any sense of impropriety about what they're doing. For people that want to find out more about the legislation and what's going on, they're trying to inform people online. The website is strongcommunityschools.com, and you can also visit their Facebook page at Standing Together for the number 4, Strong Community Schools. They would love to have some more support and input from other people, and they also have a list of legislators and how to contact them. So if anyone who is watching this meeting would like to contact legislators, that's a good way to go. Thank you.
Dr. Register, any other comments before we move forward? Thank you. All right, we'll move on to awards and recognitions. Ms. Olivia Brown.
Good evening. I'm really honored to have been asked to bring to you the names of the following 8 teachers who are here tonight to be recognized for achieving National Board Certification. They have joined the ranks of some of the nation's most accomplished educators by completing this voluntary assessment program that's designed to develop, recognize, and retain accomplished teachers. National Board Certification is achieved through a performance-based assessment that typically takes 1 to 3 years to accomplish. While state licensing systems set basic requirements to teach, in each state, National Board Certified teachers have successfully demonstrated advanced teaching, knowledge, skills, and practices. And I want to add that with these 8 that we're going to recognize tonight, we now have 65 teachers in our district, one of the highest numbers of any of our districts in the state, or any other district in the state, for the number of teachers who have achieved National Board Certification. So at this time, I'm going to call them up by name, and hopefully I will get their names correct, and have them maybe have a picture and stand here at the front to be recognized. We'll start with Tina Atkinson, who is from Percy Priest Elementary. Next, we want to recognize Lee Bybee from Meigs Middle Magnet. Next, we have Jennifer Coates from Percy Priest Elementary. Lauren England from Ross Elementary. Amy Leslie from McMurray Middle. Lori Likens from Glengarry Elementary. Leslie Thompson from Meigs Middle Magnet. And Starra Withers from Dan Mills Elementary.
Madam Chair and members of the board, I'd like to say that this group constitutes 20% of all the National Teaching Board fellows this year for the state of Tennessee.
Wow.
Thank you for doing this. Congratulations. Congratulations.
That's mine.
Okay, we will move right into public participation. Well, you know what, before we do that, one more time, let's give one more hand to these teachers. I think that's a fantastic accomplishment. All right, public participation. The board will hear from those persons who have requested to appear at this board meeting. In the interest of time, speakers are requested to limit remarks to 3 minutes or less. Comments will be timed. First up will be Erica Herbert, followed by Robbie Bruce. Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Erica Herbert, and this is Dr. Tallulah Crawley Chinook, and this is Pastor Aline Tolliver of the NAACP. I'm here, I have 3 sons that attend Metro Nashville Public Schools, and I'm here to inform y'all today that the rights of my son, Eric Herbert, has been violated by the Metro Nashville Public School System and the Metro Nashville Police Department. My son is a 9th grade special ed student at McGavick High School. Eric has a history of severe emotional depression. He was bullied in middle school and assaulted in middle school at DuPont Hatley Middle School, which he attempted suicide 5 times. On December 3rd, 2012, he was assaulted while in ISS by the teacher, Donnie Scantley. He hit my son 3 to 4 times in the back of the head while he was sitting down. The students laughed, the teachers laughed. Eric complained, he came home and complained about being dizzy and his head was hurting. I took him to Summit Hospital. They treated him for a head injury. I was directed to follow up with his doctor and to call the police. So I went home and I called the police and filed a police report. Went to the school the next day and to make Mr. Jackson and Robin Wall aware of the situation. They said they was gonna investigate, and I asked them, and I trusted Metro Nashville Public Schools to investigate these allegations. I'm sorry. But instead, my son was dropped and withdrawn from Metro Public Schools. We didn't even get a special education meeting or a parental notification. He never received homebound instructions. I requested homebound papers from Robin Walls on December the 10th. At the IEP meeting, there were several violations, and the IEP meeting was recorded. And Robin Wall mentioned at the IEP meeting that the investigation by the police was dropped, but they never once contacted me until after February that the investigation was dropped. And he said he had papers, Robin Wall said he had papers documenting. I'm so sorry, it hurts so much. But he's...
What do you want them to do?
And on January the 15th, 2013, I contacted Anna Shepard, She called me at 5:10 p.m. and I told her everything. I poured my heart out to her because I have another child at middle school, DuPont Middle School, and got assaulted on the bus too. And bullying is still going on in the schools really bad. And I told her everything about Eric. She told me that no teacher has the right to put their hands on a child, and she was gonna investigate. She told me she was gonna call me back on a Tuesday, and that would have been the 19th. She never did. I kept calling, leaving messages to Ms. Shepard to call me. I sent her an email, and she still didn't respond. I called Melissa Bryan on January the 22nd. She's Dr. Register Secretary, and I requested to get a meeting.
Ms. Herbert, I'm very sorry, but we have to stop at this point.
Okay.
Thank you. Robbie Bruce?
Good evening. This evening I'd like to talk to you not only about the children in your elementary schools, but also every school-aged child in America. After the terrible event that took place at Sandy Hook Elementary School, everyone immediately looked for a solution. People began looking for ways to prevent another tragedy from happening at their school and in their city. People began looking for ways to prevent everything. Congress, local governing bodies, political groups, parents, the media, everyone began brainstorming prevention methods. The unfortunate fact is that almost everyone went looking in the wrong direction. The answer isn't outside of our schools. The solution is right here, right now, in every elementary school in America. The very children that come into your classrooms are the generation that will shape us going forward. Elementary schools are where it begins for all these precious children. Instead of really focusing on the people that commit the violence, we're throwing money at tangible objects, placing guards or officers at certain places outside these schools. Let's focus on the children that we have now. Let's develop them in ways that will equip them and prepare them for a healthy and positive future. You won't just change a child, a class, or even a school. You'll change a generation. Let's develop them in ways that will equip them and prepare them for a healthy and positive future. You may even help deter a person from considering committing such a horrific and senseless act. That, ladies and gentlemen, is called prevention. What most are proposing to implement now is simply the most costly version of futile resistance to a problem you may have neglected years before. The healthy development of these children is at stake, and there is no budget too high for that. In your hand, you will find an outline of the type of program, 2626, which to implement in every school in the country. What this type of program is offering is the chance for the most at-risk and disconnected students to participate in something and become exposed to sports because it's free to low cost, school-sponsored, and most importantly, it's easy for the parents of these at-risk kids. Generally, there is a correlation between those students and parents who are single-parent homes, low-income households, latchkey kids. These parents don't have the time, energy, or money to engage their kids in such programs. So they choose, and the choices affect us all. If a sporting opportunity is integrated into the school day, or literally right after and costs nothing, they're going to be more likely to have their child participate and support them. And we're more likely to hit the group of people that are presumably to have mental health issues in the future. It will not require budget approval, but simply an open mind and your support, which I hope to garner this evening. Kaylin Roig, our Director of Development, originally started the Marathon Mondays initiative you hold in your hand. Some of you may or may not be familiar with who Kaylin is, but she is the only surviving first grade teacher from that day in Newtown, Connecticut. It's not about guns for her either. It's about these kids and generations of children that we now have the ability to change. You see, there are no loners in sports. You're part of a team. You're part of something much bigger than yourself. That is a bond that lasts a lifetime. Forming bonds through athletics and activities is a much brighter way than forming bonds after tragedy is struck. These bonds are exactly what we are trying to create with these programs. These children and students need an opportunity to be part of something healthy, proactive, and engaging. They need to be part of a team, learning to accept one another. Prevention is crucial, but so is development. What if we can do this all at once? What if we can be the change we want to see in this world? Tonight you have that option. You have the option to keep changing in everyone else's direction of change, or to be part of a generation of change. I look forward to seeing you all again, not just personally, but in generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will move into governance issues. Ms. Shepard.
Consent agenda, 1A, approval of minutes 1/8/13 regular meeting. B, Recommended award of contract for completion of Haywood Elementary School additions, Edwards Construction LLC, MBOE 09-015. C, change order number 1 for boiler improvements at Bailey STEM Magnet School, Advanced Mechanical Contractors, Inc., M-478. D, change order number 2 for Gateway Elementary School additions and renovations, Robert S. Biscayne and Company, Inc., M-463. E, change order number 2 for Isaac Litton Middle School additions and renovations, R.G. Anderson Company, Inc., M-448. F, recommended approval of lease for the Academy at Hickory Hollow. G, recommended approval of lease amendment for Spectrum Center, Inc. of Tennessee's use of Old Hickman Building. H, awarding of bids and contracts. Number 1, Vanderbilt University for Science Outreach. Number 2, Automated Processes, Inc. Number 3, University of Cambridge International Examinations. 4, American Education Solutions, Inc. 5, National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. 6, Teach for America, Inc. 7, International Baccalaureate Organization. 8, Connected Tennessee. And number 9, LPS Integration, Inc. I, recommended approval of legal settlement claim number C-30408. J, recommended approval of request for compulsory attendance waiver. K, recommended approval of data sharing agreement between Martha O'Brien Center and MNPS. L, recommended approval of textbook adoption. And M, recommended approval of resolution for Magnet School Assistance, a program grant. I recommend, Madam Chair, that this consent agenda be approved as read.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Say it into the mic so we can hear you.
I would like to abstain.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded, and it has been approved. The motion will be passed and accepted. Ow. Sorry, had something in my eye. It hurt. Number 2, approval of charges of dismissal for Frida Crump. Dr. Register.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. You've received information in your packet on this notification. I'll now read the letter of recommendation to the board. I'm writing to recommend the dismissal of Frida Crump from employment as a tenured teacher with the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools pursuant to TCA 49-5-511. I've charged her with incompetence, inefficiency, neglect of duty, unprofessional conduct, or conduct unbecoming to a member of the teaching profession, and insubordination, which are all grounds for his dismissal pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 49-5-511. These terms are specifically defined in Tennessee Code Annotated 49-5-501. Evidence supporting these charges was set forth in my letter to Frida Crump on February 1st, 2013, a copy of which is attached. I'm asking you to certify these charges by voting that if proven true, these charges warrant Ms. Crump's dismissal. Should you certify these charges, I will inform Ms. Crump of your action and formally advise her of the right to request a hearing before an impartial hearing officer. At the present time, I am only asking you to certify these charges. I am not asking you to weigh evidence either for or against dismissal. I am merely asking you to vote that the charges, if proven true, warrant dismissal. If Ms. Crump requests a hearing, it will occur at some point in the future. Accordingly, it's my recommendation that Frida Crump be dismissed from employment with the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools. Sincerely, Jesse B. Register.
Is there a recommendation to approve the charges of dismissal?
I recommend that we certify the charges.
Second? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Recommended approval of 2012 Director's Evaluation. Ms. Kim?
Thank you, Chairwoman Mintz. The Director Evaluation Committee met today, February 12th, and voted unanimously to approve the Director's evaluation, and we're moving now to the board for discussion and approval by the full board. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone, the board, Dr. Register, for your engagement and input into the evaluation. We covered a lot of ground, and I'll keep my comments here at a very high-level summary and then outline just a few key opportunities and next steps.
Motion to approve.
Yes.
Motion second discussion. Somebody?
Yes.
I move we approve the director evaluation.
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion.
Discussion. Summary first. Over the last year, Dr. Register has championed notable changes ranging from the full implementation of a teacher evaluation system to central office restructuring to sharpen focus on unleashing even greater leadership through autonomy and accountability at the principal level. And the district has demonstrated improvements from cost management. Just 3 years ago, we were under federal scrutiny for questionable practices, and now we are in good standing, to stronger communications with stakeholders. And of course, many of the large-scale changes are in relatively early stages, but this positive movement forward inspires a growing sense of possibility, as well as urgency to increase the pace of improvement. Bright spots across the district, where several schools drove dramatic increases in student achievement, help give us that greater sense of urgency, and promising district-wide growth tells us that we can and must move the needle across the board. All of this speaks to the leadership of Dr. Register and the Herculean effort it takes to lead and manage a system of 10,000 people strong, serving 81,000 kids, and countless duties ranging from getting the buses to run safely and on time to ensuring that we train and develop our instructional leaders all fall under Dr. Register's remit, and we commend him for taking us forward over the last year. So before us lies an incredible opportunity and challenge. We have made progress, but we, the board and Dr. Register, collectively see the need for increased pace of change that builds up everything that we've learned thus far regarding driving better student achievement outcomes. We all want world-class teaching and learning in every classroom, which itself is driven by everything from better recruitment, selection, and retention of outstanding principals and teachers to exceptional coaching and development of the 6,000 teacher and principal leaders in our schools to community support and engagement in that effort. Put another way, and in Dr. Register's words, we want every school to be a great school that is capable of providing the kind of education that enables kids to do whatever they want in life. So it is with this spirit that we approach the future and outline recommendations moving forward. So just to outline five opportunities. We felt it would be beneficial to outline district-level goals that clearly articulate our short and long-term student achievement goals. And then reflections and assessments against these goals can drive then future board-level conversations as well as director evaluations. Number two, within every single department, we need to articulate clear, relevant goals up front that tie to our district-wide effort to improve student achievement outcomes. We want to encourage and expect regular reflection against those goals that spurs course correction and continuous improvement, and of course we want to manage progress against our goals. Those goals at the department level and discussion of progress against those goals should drive future board-level reflections as well as director evaluations. Number three, we want to drive a more disciplined use of data across the system while ensuring that usage and analysis is purposeful and effective. That might seem like left field, except that right now we know that less than half of our teachers are in the data warehouse, and that we know that there must be a reason for that. So we need to get under that, and we need to problem solve so that we can get more people in the data and leading by the data. And then finally, number four, we need to ramp up human capital focus and work. Specifically, we need to continue to work to build world-class recruiting, selection, ongoing support, and retention of top teachers and principals across the district. And then my final point is, as previously noted in a meeting, we are also revisiting the director's evaluation process and the form itself as we work to build on everything that we've learned in the past and do our part to continuously improve the district effort and set Dr. Register and the broader district up for success.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. We have a motion on the table. Any other discussion? Mr. Pinkston.
I'd just like to thank Ms. Kim, Lisa, for the work you did on the this evaluation process. And this is probably the one time of the year I get to say this. I've over the last decade working in reform advocacy in my day job in different roles. I can tell you Jesse Register's reputation precedes him in this state and nationally. People, no matter where you go, will say Jesse Register is one of the the top instructional leaders in America. And I think the fact that the system has turned the way it has over the last few years is a real testament. So I just want to take the opportunity to say that publicly. And that's all I had, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Kim. Excellent job.
Madam Chair, may I make a comment?
You may.
I want to thank the very constructive conversation, you for the very constructive conversations we've had over the last few weeks as we've talked about this and discussed this, and particularly for the new board members, for 4 of you to come into the process midway through the process and to buy into a system of evaluation that was created before you got here, and to really put a lot of time into this is very much appreciated by me. I think the conversations have been constructive, and I look forward to working with you as we move forward, as we look at modifying the process going forward, and hope to have a very productive year coming up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will move right into recommended approval of managing diversity plan. Dr. Register.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. This is a result of this recommendation that you have tonight as a result of several months' work. And what I'd like to do is go back to November, specifically November 13th of 2012, when the Board of Education approved a resolution in support of diversity, embracing diversity in our school system. I think this was a significant adoption on the part of this board, supporting diversity in our district. And I might point out that this is the first diversity plan for managing the diversity of our district. It's also the first time an integrated school has been defined in a measurable way since the district attained unitary status in 1998. With the adoption of a historic resolution last November, this board declared that the district sees educational value in diverse schools. The plan spells out how we will pursue this important goal as we go forward. And without belaboring the point, I'll just make 4 points about this. The plan points this district forward by defining integration in terms of seeking critical masses of diverse groups in schools, not by placing limits on size of groups. By defining diversity not only by race and ethnicity, but also by income level and language and disability. By including the diversity of a school's staff as a factor that contributes to the diversity experience of the students in the school. And importantly, it says that henceforth, when we look at diversity in the schools, we will simultaneously look at school-wide achievement in the same schools. So we will know whether schools that are diverse are also effective and high-performing. Let me sum this up by saying this is not the old style desegregation plan. That's a backwards look. We've been unitary. We are a diverse school system. It is important for us to embrace that fact, to recognize going forward that this is an asset for us and that we manage this plan effectively. There are no quotas here. It is a plan, an aspirational plan, if you will. Currently, of 133 schools that are included in the measure, 67 or 50% currently meet the plan's definition for student diversity, and that encompasses 58% of the district students. 52% are plurality schools by definition, which means that, like the district as a whole, they enroll a student body in which there is no racial or ethnic majority group. And then 54 of our schools, or 41%, currently meet the plan's definition for staff diversity, which measures both certificated and support staff separately. And 61 others meet either the definition of certificated staff or support staff, but not both. I won't go on with the plan. It is several pages long, as you instructed me to do in the resolution. We have been working with our consultant, Dr. Lynn Stevens, to develop this plan. I think it is a unique statement of where we want to go in the future and puts our district apart, as a matter of fact. So I bring to you this plan for your consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Register. Is there a motion on the floor to approve the diversity plan? Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Questions, comments? All right, Mr. Pinkston, then Mr. Hayes.
How about it?
Thank you. So I think it's important to step back and give some context here about why we're doing this, and I think it's important for a lot of people. There's we used the term recently, irrational exuberance. A lot of people are coming into this market with a lot of high expectations for reform. Some of them are new charter operators, some of them are new to our conversations, and now, as we've learned today, the state has decided it wants to weigh in on some issues in an ill-advised way. So I'd just like to, Dr. Register made the point that we're not looking backward, but I think sometimes we can learn from history, and I think it's important that we reflect on this for just a minute, where this community has come from and where we are now. I first want to commend Dr. Register and the staff for putting together what I think is a very clear and logical plan. It lays out a vision for how we build and maintain diversity in the 42nd largest school system in America. Quick anecdote there. Last month, as many of you know, there was an article in the New York Times that got a lot of attention. It basically called Nashville America's new it city, the place where everyone wants to be. And a lot of us were smiling because, the rest of the country's figured out what we've all known all along, that we're a world-class city with a great quality of life and a bright future economically, culturally, educationally. But the thing I really liked about the article was it didn't let us off the hook. It pointed out that things haven't always been so rosy here, and it noted that we still struggle with what the Times called a legacy of segregation, and that we still got plenty of work to do to improve public education at all levels. So to the legislature, people in the charter movement, people who want to force charters on us without our consent, to state board members who don't know Nashville, and to other reformers who may be new to town, I want to tell you, for more than 40 years, Nashville lived under a federal desegregation lawsuit. It was filed in 1955. It was not settled until 1998 under the leadership of then Mayor Bredesen, the school board, which was at that time led by Chairwoman June Lambert, and then later Betsy Walkup, the Metro Council, then Director of Schools Bill Wise. Settling that case led to a property tax increase to fund a $206 million plan to build and rebuild schools all over Davidson County. It was a long, drawn-out ordeal, especially for those who worked for decades to end segregation, and that was just 15 years ago. So to some people that may seem like a long time ago, but in the context of public education, it really is not that far in the past. Like I said, I'm just going through all this context because I think there's some confusion in the community about why we're doing this, what it all means. Probably some people think this is purely a reaction to what happened last year and what the legislature is now doing, reacting to. But let's be honest, the timing is in part, a reaction to that. But this is also work that had been underway, that has been needed as we come to grips with what the future looks like for the demographics in our community. Nobody wants to end up where we were for too long in this city, which was with a school system that was separate and unequal. I think it's important to just remind ourselves of history. So I know that everybody here believes that our diversity is something to be celebrated and protected, not at the expense of academics, but as a complement to it and as a moral imperative. And I just want to say point blank, if we don't approach charter schools and other schools of choice in a thoughtful way, then, as I think Mr. Stevens was the one who pointed out at our retreat last fall, we're either going to enhance our diversity or we're going to end up inadvertently resegregating the school system and risk ending up back in federal court a decade from now. Nobody wants that. And so, folks at the state, this stuff is serious, and we take it seriously in this community, and we're sorry if you don't understand things, but we're happy to give you a tutorial anytime you want to talk about it. The only thing I think we're missing, Dr. Register, at this point is meaningful engagement with parents and the public. I think the plan is excellent thinking. We kind of missed the opportunity to engage the community in its development, but I think what's most important now is to assure folks that it's a living document that will make refinements as we get experience with it, and that most of all, it's a vision for the system and the community, not a device for complicating the charter movement or anything else. So I'm obviously going to vote in favor of it, but I just wanted to do some wraparound historical context.
Thank you. Mr. Hayes?
Thank you. Just kind of, I guess, a question under Section J, and I wanted to engage perhaps Dr. Register or others in this question. As we contemplated this document and discussed it over the last year or so, we discussed the notion that due to, and this is really more around MNPS zone schools, that we will have a number of schools that won't meet our goals as outlined within the diversity plan. And there, we can take lots of steps to promote choice and provide transportation and do other things to try to make our system meet our goals, which I applaud this effort, frankly. But I'm curious around one sentence outlined in J, and part of this is to the extent that this document is not one that would be used to approve or deny a charter school. I think we talk about this as we hope quickly that you'll pull together guidelines for our current applicants and future applicants. But we say here charter schools are required to have diversity plans comparable in kind to this plan, recognizing that a charter school is a single school and not a school system. And so is the intention of that language for a CMO, if a charter management organization was to open 5 or 10 schools in our county, is that to prevent them from acting similar to us? Could they use the argument that we have 3,000 schools, we have 3,000 students, we have 5,000 students. We are trying to mirror what MNPS is doing by opening in diverse neighborhoods, and we will mirror your plan to try to have diverse schools. But you know what? We may have one school in the same way MPS has schools that don't meet this goal. Do you see that particular sentence as one that is geared towards preventing a CMO from opening multiple campuses throughout the county?
That I do not see this as a move to prevent CMOs from opening multiple campuses, but when you look at the criteria that we each year which we use to evaluate the district as a whole, we're really looking at individual schools. We're looking at those schools that are plurality schools or diverse schools. Our goal is to be intentional about our decision making. When we open new schools, when we site new schools, when we develop enrollment plans, whether they're magnet schools or zone schools, it's our intent to be intentional about seeing that schools fit our goals of having diverse schools across our district. That's not to say that we have a quota system, that we're going back and closing schools because they might not fit the definition, but nor that, as I said, that we have quotas where we are mandated. We are not mandated to do this, but we want to be intentional about our decision making. And I think the perfect example is the meeting that we held to discuss a potential new school in Waverly Belmont in 12 South, and the conversation around the fact that we intend for that to be a diverse school, and that we do not want, when we site that school and develop an attendance zone and a plan for attending that school, we don't want it to have an adverse effect on the diversity of the schools that it draws from. In fact, we ought to have all winners based on the plan that we propose and put forward. And I think that's really a key part of the plan as we go forward. Let's be intentional about recognizing the value of diversity in our schools, and as we make those decisions that will promote diversity school by school across our district.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Frobe?
I just wanted to commend Lynn Stevens on his work on this plan. He is, Dr. Lynn Stevens, he is really a national expert, and I think, as he told us, he's been involved in this since 1974. He has a really wonderful, broad grasp of this issue, and I think he has put together a very flexible, very forward-thinking plan for us, and I'm very excited that we now have sort of a direction and a vision for clearly where we want to go. So.
Any other comments or questions? All right, the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Dr. Register.
Terrific.
We will move right into Part B of the Director's Report.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I'll call on Nicole Shaput-Guzani, who is our Executive Director of Performance of English Learners, our EL program. And Dr. DePriest, are you going to join her at the podium in the presentation? Are you joining her? Are you joining Nicole? Okay, Nicole, we'll turn it over to you.
Cheerleading for Becky.
You may.
Okay, all right.
Chairperson Mays, Vice Chair Shepard, and Dr. Register, members of the board, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share with you the efforts of the TLG for the performance of English learners and the work of the EL office. My co-chair, Jan Lanier, who is the ESL coordinator for the state, is in Memphis doing compliance monitoring, and so she's not able to be with us tonight. I'd like to begin my presentation with a very brief overview of the court cases historically that define our work. In 1974, Lau v. Nichols, school districts are required to take necessary actions to provide students who do not speak English as their first language the ability to overcome the educational barriers. 1981, Castaneda versus Picard, this court case created a three-part assessment to determine bilingual and ESL programs. The first piece of that is that the program must be based on sound educational theory. The second is that that program must be implemented effectively with resources. And the third prong is that after a trial period, the program must be proven effective. And so throughout my presentation tonight, I want you to know that we pay close attention to those three criteria. The last case I want to mention is Plyer versus Doe, 1982, in which the Supreme Court ruled that all children should have equal access to public education, regardless of citizenship or immigration status. And so moving on from there, I have these MNPS goals for ELs. And if you read through them, you will notice that these are our 5 characteristics of an MNPS graduate. And the reason I put this is so that we go into this presentation realizing that our goals for ELs are the same goals we have for all students in the district. What I would like to do now is go into a piece and talk to you about some acronyms and some data from our district. First, I'm going to talk about NELB, non-English language background. We have about 20,000 students who speak a first language other than English, and those are our NELB students. That's about 26% of the MNPS student population, and it includes 116 native languages. Top 5 languages are listed there for you. LEP subgroup. LEP stands for Limited English Proficient, and I am explaining this acronym because LEP subgroup is what we use for our accountability purposes. So in the LEP subgroup, our students who are eligible for EL services are included. Those are students who are not proficient in English. And the other almost 3,000 here are students recently exited from the program. They're still included in this LEP subgroup when we talk about accountability and testing, just for 2 years after they exit. This is some data so you can compare our district to the state and also to other districts in Tennessee. You'll see Memphis City is closest to us in numbers with about 7,500 English learners. And then this slide shows you out of all the LEPs, limited English proficient students in Tennessee, MNPS has about 28% of those. This is important because we really are one of the districts in Tennessee that needs to be forward-thinking in terms of our English learners and working closely with the state to make sure that policies are fair for our students. The next acronym is ELS, or ELs. It can be said either way, and those are our English learners, students who are not proficient in English and who are receiving EL services. The EL services is the first number there, 8,400. And then we have about 550 students who have waived services, which is a little bit lower than last year. And that makes up our group of ELs. The next few slides, I'm just going to give you some quick data. This is interesting. It shows the grade levels of our English learners over the past 3 years. About 51% of our English learners are in K1 and 2. At this time, I want to mention that over the past 3 years, we've been working on decentralizing EL services. We used to bus students to certain schools that were EL centers, and this is the first year that any student in the district can attend any school of zone or choice and receive EL services at that school. And so here's a slide that shows you where our English learners are in terms of cluster over the past 3 years. This next piece of information gives you data on the number of new students in MNPS who speak another first language, and we count that number because every student who speaks another first language has to come through the EL office to be assessed, to enroll, to register and enroll. And so this number for 2012-13 is a projection based on the past 4 years increase. We're not at 3,200 yet, but we probably will be by the end of this school year. Next, I'm going to move into accountability measures and how the state measures our district's EL program. There are 3 measures that I'll be reviewing. Annual measurable achievement objectives 1, 2, and 3. So the first AMAO is a percentage of our English learners who have made progress on the ELDA, which is our English language proficiency test. The testing window is just started yesterday for this year. So the AMAOs are on these next 3 slides, and I think you all have this handout. I want to point out that the data on my slides is different than the data you got in your handouts because we received the AMAOs from the state on January 31st, and my documents were due to you on February 1st, and so as soon as we got it, I threw it into your documents, but since then we've been working on the data and working with the state, and we have noticed some calculations that needed to be looked at. We've also noticed that the criteria has changed on the AMAOs, and so here on the 3rd column you'll see it says MNPS based on prior criteria, and then the 4th column MNPS based on current criteria. And you'll see that on some subsequent slides as well. AMAO 1, you'll see that this past year, 2011-12, we did not make AMAO 1. We're at 63.7% here, but we will be appealing that number. I've been working with the research and assessment department here and doing some calculations and looking at how the state calculated it. And with the appeals, we think that we will make AMAO 1, and I'd like to keep you posted on that as we do that work with the state. AMAO 2 is the percentage of ELs achieving proficiency on the ELDA, and so again, this is our annual English proficiency assessment. Any student who scores proficient is included in this group, and this year we did meet that goal. AMAO 3, again, this has new criteria this year. The new criteria was, did the LEP subgroup make improvement? And the question is, did the LEP subgroup make improvement in 3-8 math or 3-8 reading or the end of course Algebra 1 or the end of course Algebra 2? This is really exciting because we made improvement in all 4 areas, and so we did make this goal. I'm going to move forward and talk to you about some of the ways that we're working on instruction. And before I do that, I want to tie it to this AMAO 3 because we have been working very hard to move our English EL teachers up to not only focus on reading, writing, listening, and speaking, but simultaneously focus on academic content. And with this AMAO, we can see that our work is starting to infiltrate into the classrooms. This is the academic content piece that we've been working on. So you have the data, you know who we're talking about, and now I'd like to talk to you about closing the access gap. Our goal has always been to ensure that our EL students and their families have equal access to education, to programs in the district, to information. And by closing that access gap, we know we'll close the achievement gap. So there's 3 ways that we're doing that: transforming classroom practice, empowering non-English speaking parents, and building cultural responsiveness. So first, I'd like to share with you a little bit about the SIOP model of instruction. SIOP stands for Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. This is a model of instruction based on the research of best practices. It was developed in a national research project funded by the U.S. Department of Ed from 1996 to 2003. SIOP was originally designed as a tool, as an observation tool for researchers, and the teachers who were participating in the project discovered its potential for lesson preparation and reflection during their lessons. And so the model has been refined and field tested over the years. The ELTLG did research and found this model and started implementing it about a year ago in 3 schools, and we quickly grew to about working in 27 schools. So these are the components of the SIOP model. There are about 30 elements within these 8 components. What you'll see here with the SIOP model is there's really 3 pieces. There's preparation, there's instruction, and then assessment. And so lesson preparation you see on the top of the list, review and assessment at the bottom, and everything else in between is working on instruction in our classrooms. As I said, we've been working in 27 schools, and in those 27 schools, we have over 4,000 English learners. The other key piece to what we're doing with implementing SIOP is the way we're implementing it. Our implementation plan, we go into each school, each leadership team with a general plan of action, and then we tweak it to meet the needs of the school and the teachers in that school, and we do that all along the way. So we're in 27 schools, but all of those schools are at different places in implementing these components. Some schools we found that a group of teachers we need to work more on a certain component, and some we kind of go through our monthly plan. But again, I think that's a key to the way that we're implementing this so that professional growth is sustained. Our next steps with the SIOP model will, now that we are about a year deep into implementation, is to look at some data, compare some of our SIOP schools to our non-SIOP schools. We plan to start with teacher effect data because we know that that's where we will see the impact first, and then eventually move to student data. The other next step with SIOP is to work on a 3-year plan going forward with our elementary, middle, and high school teams here in central office, and with our network lead principals to look at which schools should be next in implementing SIOP, and also the alignment with project-based learning. Also, in terms of transforming classroom practice, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about how we're working with Common Core and English learners. We are part of the district Common Core team. We've also been working on aligning ESL state standards to Common Core state standards so that as our EL teachers implement Common Core with all ELs, they're also keeping the ESL state standards in mind and making sure they focus on the reading, writing, listening, and speaking that our English learners need in order to meet those state standards. We've done some professional development and will continue doing professional development in text complexity in ELD courses and in English courses for our English learners. We want to make sure that they are held to the same expectations as all students and the scaffolding that they need is in place. And we also have a work group working on Common Core and ELs, Peabody College professors, and some other EL directors from counties in Tennessee, making sure that we're keeping up with what's going on in the country with Common Core and EL, and focusing our efforts where we need to. We've also been working on our ESL endorsement partnerships. We have partnerships with 3 local universities, Lipscomb University. Our elementary teachers work with Lipscomb and the ESL endorsement program there. We worked with Lipscomb and built that program together. And so as our teachers go through, they learn about the SIOP model and then the other courses that they need to take. Our Vanderbilt program is a grant from the U.S. Department of Ed, and that's a 5-year grant. We have 15 teachers that will go through that. This is the first year of that grant, so that will continue for 5 years. And then our Belmont program focused on professional development for secondary content teachers. And we have just completed our 3rd cohort in January that went through that program. In working with these ESL endorsements and recognizing as a district that we want dually endorsed teachers, we've also reached out to the community, and through the work of Dr. DePriest, we have spoken with each of the universities listed on the screen, and they have agreed to include, or at least agreed to start the conversation to include, an ESL endorsement in their undergraduate teacher prep programs. So one of the other ways that we are closing the access gap is to empower non-English speaking parents. We have a new project that we started in the fall called Building Diverse Parent Leaders, and we're partnering with our Student Services Family Involvement Specialist, where we actually are going out to the community, different community groups, and speaking with our non-English speaking families about how to become involved in the district, not just at their school level, but to have a voice in the district and finding out their interests and helping overcome barriers in that sense. We are continuing with our parent ESL classes that are funded by an immigrant grant through the state. And this year specifically, we've been focusing on improving our team of interpreters and translators because they are really our connection to our non-English speaking families. So cultural responsiveness. A few areas we have been working to not only increase the cultural responsiveness in MNPS, but also in the Nashville community. And so I'll go through the opportunities listed on the screen. The first one is a cultural capital workshop that we are partnering with our Human Capital Department and then Caroline Blackwell from Metro Human Services to work with the English Learner Department and also our Department of Exceptional Education. We're starting there and exploring diversity, building cultural capital within, and we hope to work with our HR department here and maybe spread that throughout the district. My office offers an understanding and appreciating the English learner, professional development, and this one is really a key because we offer it to teachers and administrators, but we also offer it to front office staff, to counselors and guidance clerks and the MNPS employees who may not have other opportunities to learn about English learners and different cultures and being culturally responsive. We had 6 sessions that we offered in the fall, and we plan to do more of those in the spring. Next are the cultural exchanges. Starting last summer, we partnered with the Nashville International Center for Empowerment to hold cultural exchanges, and that looks like about an hour-and-a-half session where we bring in speakers from a target language to meet with school faculty and staff to discuss school in their country, what the differences are, and how we as a district can help students from other cultures achieve more in our schools. NICE, Nashville International Center for Empowerment, has that grant again this year. They're able to meet with 10 schools, and so our office has partnered with them, so they'll train us in how to do that with our team of translators and interpreters, and we'll be able to go out and do the cultural exchanges in our other schools. The last thing I'd like to mention is the work of the Refugee and Immigrant Support Services Committee that Dr. Register began a few years ago is now focusing on community discussions based on the Next Door Neighbor series. I don't know if you're familiar with that. If not, you can look on the NPT website. There are 6 documentaries on different targeted cultures present in Nashville. And so with the Refugee and Immigrant Support Services Committee, which is a committee, an Alignment Nashville committee, we have all been trained to hold these community discussions. A couple weeks ago, we released an invitation to participate to the community at large, and we are now just waiting to receive responses, and we will actually go out and hold these community discussions, and that is just to build more cultural responsiveness, not just within MNPS, but in the community. So on the horizon, I'm almost finished. We have 3 other things I listed here. I won't read them out to you, but 3 other things that we're working on to ensure that ELs are included throughout. We have work groups working on each of these, the magnet schools, identifying ELs with disabilities, and gifted programs. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is that we are looking at dual language programs, the possibility of this happening in MNPS. And I'm going to flash up there right away that this is in the exploration phase because we are in the very early stages. This is a conversation that I'm working on, looking at some research with some members of the ELTLG, specifically people at Vanderbilt that we're working with who are, they know a lot about these dual language programs. And so we have some barriers that we're looking at. We have a list of things that we need to consider before we even move forward. But I wanted to mention that before I leave. And that's it. And if you have questions, I'd be happy to stay and answer them for you.
Thank you. Any questions? Ms. Barron?
First of all, thank you, Nicole, for this presentation. Would you go back to AMA 01?
Yes.
Yes. My question is, in 2008, 2009, the MNPS based on prior criteria, we did pretty well, 84.7%. But it looks like we've gone steadily downhill. Am I misinterpreting this?
Using the current way that they calculate it, if you look in the 4th column, we started at 67, went down to 62, went back up to 68, and went back down to 63, which I think that number is a little over 66 actually, but the state gave us 63.7.
Were we doing anything differently in 08, 09?
No, I've been working with our research and assessment department and asking, what do these numbers mean? Is there such a great variance? And we have been disaggregating this data and looking at grade levels and ELs that are included in this group. Students included in AMA 01 have to have 2 ELDA data points, and it has to be prior year and current year. So any kindergartners are not included here. Any students that are new to the district, even if they make improvement, are not included here because they have only taken this test one time. So we can, there are different things that have happened. We have gone from self-contained classrooms to integrated classrooms, which was a major change for our EL teachers, having a class of English learners and then having an integrated class. When that happened, as a district, we needed more EL teachers to meet those needs, and so we had a large group of teachers go back to school and take EL courses while they were the EL teacher. So that's another thing to consider. Those teachers were learning how to be EL teachers while they were teaching English learners. There are different factors, yes, that probably we could explain the jump up and down. What research and assessment has told me is that there's not such a great variance that we can pinpoint one specific instructional thing or one specific other change that has made the numbers go up and down like this.
May I ask, would that variation possibly be on the number of new students every year that you have and that you're not comparing similar students? I was quite surprised by those numbers. I hadn't seen those numbers about how many new students come into the district every year.
It could be the new students. So another thing is the number of newcomers that come in. Our students who are newcomers would not make a jump from one level to the next within 1 year. Most of our newcomers come in and they would score a 1 on the ELDA, and the second year they take it, they will score 1 on the ELDA. Even though there's improvement in their score, they would still show up as a 101. The other thing is that the ELDA is given in clusters. So the K2 ELDA is a rubric that teachers fill out on a student. And then we have a 3-5 test, a 6-8 test, and a 9-12 test. We've looked at the data, and our first grade level in each cluster scores much lower than the consequent grade levels. So in our 3-5 group, our third graders score much, much lower than the fourth and fifth graders. And then, so if you have a fifth grader who scores well and then jumps to the 6th through 8th grade test, again, they don't score as well as they did in 5th grade. So we have a lot of questions about the test.
Let me ask you about the integrated classroom. I would think that an integrated classroom would make so much better sense than children being, all the ELL students being pulled out, and they don't have that rich language that they would receive in an integrated classroom. Has that been our experience after we integrated our classrooms?
I think that that's the goal, but I think and we may be there now, but when we started our integrated classrooms in 09-10 for 1st through 4th grade, and then 10-11 we included kindergarten with that group. Like I said, we had a lot of teachers new to EL and a lot of brand new teachers teaching EL. So I think as a district right now we are working with that and with the EL coaches in the district, with the professional development that we offer, the support that we receive from our partnering universities, that we're working towards high-functioning integrated classrooms, yes.
And just one more. I really like the idea of what we're doing to empower our non-English speaking parents. About how many parents do we have participating in those activities?
So we started this program in the fall, and we actually work with our interpreters and translators to kind of get a connection to go out. So the The first group that we met with was our Kurdish families, and we went to the Salahuddin Center, and I spoke to them after their Friday prayer one day. And we had a form that we asked them to fill out. We picked it up the next week, and so there were probably hundreds of people there, and we maybe got back 10 forms, which is good. I mean, that's what we expected, and we're looking for the parent leaders to come and work with us, and then go back to the community and bring more parents in as we go forward. The next group we met with was on a Sunday. We went to a church and met with Nepali families. Did the same thing, and I think we got about the same number of forms back. And so the form was, simple questions, your phone number, your email, are you interested in working with us, and your children and what schools they work at, because we want to bring principals into this work with us too. This weekend we're meeting with a Vietnamese group at a restaurant that they go to after their church services. And then on March 3rd, I'm meeting with some Egyptian families at their church, after church on a Sunday. And so I've mentioned, when I go and present to them, I mentioned to them that my goal in the end is that on Dr. Register's Parent Advisory Council, when we have those meetings, that we see a lot of diversity in the room. And I tell the parents that we want to start with bringing you into the school and this and that, and they want to know when we're going to the PAC meeting. So everyone we've met with so far is very open and excited, and parents are coming up to me after and giving me their cards, and they really want to be involved. So like I said, we just started this in November, and we're kind of working. We have a list of different places that we want to go and parents that we want to meet with, and we're working with the family involvement specialists too in whatever clusters. So they're coming along and meeting the families as well. And so I think that eventually, they're ready to come and have their voice be heard in the district.
Yes, that's great. Thank you, Nicole.
Mr. Pinkston and then Ms. Shepherd.
Thank you, Nicole. Could you go back? I want to reflect on two slides for a second. The first one is the grade levels, learners by grade. And where you're looking for that, you said grades K, 1, and 2 we've got 50% of the total EL population. And can you unpack that for a little bit? I mean, is that because as students progress, they become proficient and so the numbers go down, or is that because we're seeing, a larger influx in those early grades, combination of both?
The majority of our ELs come in at kindergarten. And so, yes, I would say they come in at kindergarten and usually stay for I think the average is about 4 years. So that's why we're heavier on the elementary side. Okay.
And then the next slide, a couple of clicks down, is the learners by cluster. Mm-hmm. So this is really just almost point of personal pride. The three clusters that I represent are Overton, Glencliff, and Antioch, or actually in this order, Glencliff, Overton, and Antioch. And so it's a point of personal pride for me to be able to represent those schools, and I just want to give a shout out to those teachers and those principals in those clusters. They're doing enormous work, and I think if we can get this academic piece right system-wide and along the way deliver really high-quality services to the youngest new Americans, I think we've done a phenomenal thing and can lead the country in something else. So I think it's interesting. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole, for lots of great information. I have just a couple questions. Actually, the first one is I'm trying to determine the difference between an ELS and an LEP. So what would differentiate the two?
Let me pop back up to the LEP slide. And so your question was LEP versus EL, right? Right. Okay. So the LEP subgroup, the difference is that 2811, those are that number up there, those are students who have exited EL services. So they have tested proficient in English, but for accountability purposes, they stay in this group for 2 years. We call them T1s and T2s, transitional 1s and 2s. We monitor them for 2 years. Schools, after each report card period, schools have to monitor the students in that group to make sure that they are achieving, and if they're not achieving, we look to see if it's a language issue and if they need to be brought back into EL services.
Okay, thank you. And then to the translators that MNPS have, approximately how many do we have?
We have about 46 right now. They speak 14 different languages and are from 15 countries.
You answered both my questions. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Kim?
Yes. Thanks, Nicole. On AMA02, on page 9 in our deck, it's hard not to notice that still less than 1 in 5 of our ELs are achieving proficiency on the LDA. And my question is, well, it's remarkable to see the difference between 08, 09 to 09, 10, because there was an 8-point jump. So of course my brain is like, what happened in that year? But actually what I'm really staring at are the goals, because we have an incremental 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and just generally my experience with goals is that, you do get what you ask for. And so my question is, if we did set a big goal and said that in 13, 14, we're going to go for 30%, 35%, I would love to see what that kind of thinking and innovation that would produce, because I think that is the purpose of the goal, is to inspire a whole different kind of thinking, getting out of the box, assuming no constraints about what's possible. So we have people all throughout the system who are just pushing the envelope constantly about what's possible and exploring new ideas to tackle this challenge. Otherwise, I worry incremental goals encourage incremental thinking and progress. So that's just one thought. One other thought is that on the ACT, I love seeing that ACT of at least 21 or higher is listed on the goal sheet up front on slide 3. So, presumably that is like the ultimate outcome goal that we're looking for, is to put our kids on a totally different trajectory in life, which means they have to be proficient on this test in order to get into college or have choices. They may not choose to go to college, but at least they have the choice. And so how are we doing against that goal?
I actually don't have those numbers right now. I'd be happy to find them and get back to you all on that.
That'd be awesome.
And then for the AMAO, all of the goals on these AMAO slides are the state goals. So these aren't district goals, but thank you for your idea, and I think that we will consider that. Yeah, setting our own district goals.
Can I just have one more thought on the 21? Yeah. So in just looking through all the slides in this deck, I could infer lots of things about our theory of change on how we're going to get to 21 or higher across the board, or how we're going to increase proficiency, whatever goal we set on the LDA. And I am admittedly struggling. There's so much good stuff in here, but I could infer from this that after doing the hard thinking work and trying to get to the root cause of our challenge and then tackling those root causes and then trying to loft up the things that are going to actually drive performance, it's not clear to me that we have a cohesive theory of change. Because so I could infer that maybe it's actually about getting at least one course completed online for high school or college credit, that's the big kicker. Or I can infer that's about, empowering parents. I can infer lots of different things. And I'm not saying that we have to say that everything links 100% perfectly. But I guess my point is that it'd be good to see sort of alignment across the board. So there's a goal, there's a theory that's driving how we're going to get to the goal, and you see that playing out then in our actions, and then also how we track those actions. Because then I'm interested then, given that you only find out whether you hit 21 or higher in ACT once a year, then obviously that's not really a goal that's driving action. We need to figure out what are the process goals along the way, based on our theory of change, of what's going to really drive success, and how are we doing against those process metrics. So having that sort of A to Z, perfect logic.
Yes.
Maybe not perfect logic.
Yes, thank you. No, we are actually working on a 3-year strategic plan right now. We just started talking about it this week under the direction of Jay Steele. And so I hope that from that we will get to what you're talking about, and I agree with you.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Nicole. It was a great presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We have next an item I added to the director's report fairly late, and that's an assessment update. I'll ask Paul Changas to come up. And I put this on in response to a number of questions coming from parents in the community and also members of the board. And it's questions about that really are dealing with a transition that we're going through in testing and assessment in our schools. And so we'll make this a fairly succinct presentation and then see what questions you might have. Paul?
Thank you, and we will keep this short. And I know that we all hear comments about the amount of testing that occurs, and there is a lot of testing that's going on. And I'll try to put that in context, but I want to start by saying that teachers are assessing students every day, and the questions they ask and the observations they make in the classroom and the assignments and the assessments that they give in the classroom. And what we've got to do is to utilize the information on our district and state assessments to the maximum to try to supplement those assessments. And the second quote on here from Beeler and Snowman, it's anticipated that a third to a half of the time teachers are in classrooms, they are making assessments of some type of measurement on students. But they also point out that this isn't a task that most teachers enjoy or are particularly strong at. Now, I think we've gotten much better in our assessment practices, our formative assessment practices, as we have implemented, in some cases, standards-based grading, where we're working on doing a better job of assessing whether children have mastered those critical skills. But the reality is that when you look at our data in terms of grades versus test scores, in this district, statewide, nationwide, there's a pretty big discrepancy. And that's the reason we fall back on these benchmark assessments at the district and state level. That's why we're held accountable for those external measures to make sure we're on track in terms of those standards. Now, there are multiple factors that are impacting the assessment frequency that we're seeing currently. One is, I think you're well aware, we're still held accountable under TCAP and end of course testing for standards that were adopted by the state 3 years ago. Those are, for 2 more years, our benchmarks for accountability purposes. In the meantime, as you know, we're implementing Common Core and moving toward PARCC assessments. And I know you've seen some of the activities, the assessment items that have been shared so far publicly on the PARCC. And they're very different types of assessment, much more rigorous, get more into the concepts and applications, problem-solving activities. And if we're going to be prepared moving forward for those new assessments, we obviously have to start piloting those now as a state and as a district. So we have some assessments that we'll see in just a second that are particular to this implementation, and those will continue to grow over the next 2 years until we go full steam into PARCC. And finally, we adopted a teacher evaluation system where 35% of the system is based on growth and 15% on an additional achievement or assessment measure. And that has led to us using some additional assessments, particularly at the elementary level where we didn't have state mandated assessments. You have a chart in front of you, and I know it's quite busy. Jan Lineberger in our office put this together, and it is a bit overwhelming when you look at all these tests, but they are specific to certain grade levels and certain grade spans. The first column highlights the actual name of the assessment, whether it's a district assessment, a state assessment, or in the case of the Stanford Achievement Test, somewhat of a combination of the two. It's an assessment that the state has provided at no cost to districts in the lower grades, but it's not a mandate, but it is strongly encouraged, and it is one of the assessments that fills in a gap for teacher evaluation purposes in those lower grades where we don't have a lot to choose from. The second set of data shows the grade spans, whether it's a K2, 3-8, 9-12 assessment. Then whether it's a fall, spring, or summer test. And some of those tests that show fall and spring, like Discovery Education, are actually given 3 times a year. We test in August or September at the beginning of the year, November, and typically in February. The population tested, most of these are going to be assessments for all students. There are some that are specific to exceptional education or English learners. And we just heard about the ELDA assessment, but we also have an English simplified assessment for English learners. For special education students, we have a modified assessment, the TCAP MOS, and the portfolio assessment for a small percentage of our students. Test format, whether it's a paper and pencil test or an online application. And the online applications are typically for these new assessments that we're developing. In some cases, we make the tests available in both formats, discovery education, for instance. And we know that it's technology, the challenge for Park is to be able to assess in a relatively short period of time a large number of students on these assessments by 2014-15. So the discovery assessments have been a good measure for us to kind of see where we are in terms of getting students in and out of the testing setting. We just administered the TCAP writing assessment online last week for the first time. That had been a paper and pencil test. It's now aligned to Common Core standards and giving us a chance to get larger samples in terms of student preparation. And I must say, it actually went surprisingly well, particularly with the help of our information technology department. We had a few bumps in the road, but for the most part, the testing was smooth, and we were able to provide some useful feedback to the state. We had Erin O'Hara from the State Department that observed in a couple of our schools. Data gathering, whether it's the information is collected on an answer sheet, online, one assessment that's tested on paper but gathered online is our DIBELS assessment. And then whether the reporting is provided to us on paper, on a CD, or online. The state has moved more to the online reporting rather than printing all of the reports that they have in the past. So when you look at all of this, and I know there are a lot of assessments shown here, I've highlighted on this slide three that are aligned to Common Core or college readiness. The TCAP writing and constructed response assessments. We just gave the writing, and another constructed response assessment's coming up soon. These are two tests that really get into the application of skills and the process that children go through in solving problems beyond the rote memory tasks and the simple filling in of bubbles that we typically have had. The Explore in the 8th grade, the Plan in the 10th grade, and the ACT are college readiness measures. They're very comparable in terms of the challenge they present to students to those Common Core type tasks. So we as a district have been preparing for these new assessments in piloting the constructed response and the writing assessment. And these are some feedback we got from teachers, and I want to thank Dave Moore, who's here tonight, for sharing this. This is just two slides, a small sample of the responses we got. And I'll say that not all of the responses we got were completely positive in terms of the amount of time that these activities take, because there's scoring that's going on in the schools right now for these tasks. Whether that will continue in the future when these assessments are operational across the state for everyone, we're not sure. But right now there's a fair amount of time that's involved to read these essays and to score them. But it's tremendous professional development. And these are the types of comments we had. The professional conversations were very valuable. Communication about what is expected from the student and how they are performing is information that they haven't had in a similar fashion. Teachers are learning about how their students think. They're recognizing the importance of teaching students to think and to communicate their thinking. We're seeing conversation about true change in instruction. Teachers learned from each other and had wonderful conversations. It's a continuing theme. A new way of thinking for the students and teachers, and pushing them to go beyond those rote responses. And this last response, caused my teachers to reflect on how their teaching is meeting the needs of all of our students. They're looking and analyzing their teaching practices and beginning to make shifts in teaching. And that's what we want to see. And there's a lot of data, Grant Wiggins and others, that indicate that assessment can drive positive change when we get to those richer tasks, when we challenge students, and when we do get into that process of looking at how they reach a response. And it gives us a lot of opportunity to develop those skills. It's a tremendous challenge for us and as educators to react to those assessments, but I do think it will move us forward. So yes, there's a lot of testing that's going on, and hopefully, and where there are concerns, and I'll say there are certain assessments that you'll hear very positive responses in some schools and not so positive in others. And part of what we have to do is to look at what we can do to work with teachers, and we have our data coaches that are in schools on a regular basis. We have our instructional coaches in schools to see what we can do to make sure that we understand the purpose of those assessments and how to best utilize those. Our data coaches have been receiving training on formative assessment. That first slide I showed that talked about teachers are not necessarily the best at the assessment process. One of the things we want to do is get better at writing those types of tests that will challenge students and provide that rigor. So I'll open it up for questions.
Any questions? Ms. Froh?
It's just good to have this. We're excited about having this.
And the descriptions that follow that chart are very brief. They give you an overview, but we'll be happy to provide more detail on any of those assessments.
Okay, this might fall more in the category of comment, but I do have some questions, so bear with me. I've started raising this issue a lot lately because from a ground level, I think the number one factor that's affecting our teachers, the number one complaint from teachers, number one complaint from parents is the quantity of assessments that we have now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting to me to see some of these comments because, to be honest, I really haven't heard anything positive about the quantity of assessments that we're giving. And what I'm hearing consistently is that teachers they're so covered up with testing that they can't teach, and they're spending a lot of time inputting data. And this is not just at my school, it's from parents across the district, teachers across the district. And I've talked to some real veterans, some 20-year teachers, and they are very frustrated with how many assessments were given. It appears from this chart that most of them are state
mandated, yes.
Which is not something that we can control, but I think that's problematic. I think what this has created in our school, and I think other schools, is sort of a culture of fear and this sort of just an unrelenting focus on testing. And the interesting part to me is how the social emotional development sort of interplays with the testing. What is happening, at least in our school, is that we are cutting out other activities which I think are really important and very beneficial for children. I can tell you that at our elementary school, these are not high schoolers studying for an ACT, we are down to 15 minutes recess every day, which really is 10 minutes on the playground once kids walk down the hall, get outside. We've just put a lot of money, our PTO, in a natural landscape playground design because we did some studies we didn't do studies, we found studies online that talked about the benefits of playing in a natural environment and creative play and this sort of free time and how that drives achievement. These children don't have time to use it. We put in a teaching garden where we're growing vegetables. The teachers were all on board. This year they had more assessments. They say they can't do it. Our school counselor, my understanding is that she no longer can conduct any counseling sessions with any students until the end of the year because she's become the test planner and monitor. Mm-hmm. So I think these are real big problems, and you're the bearer of the news, so I'm not, it's not directed at you, but I guess the questions I do want to ask is, that I think if clearly we have to have assessments.
Yeah.
My understanding is in fourth grade, I see this list, but when you count in all this extra, the repeats and the different parts of these tests, my understanding is we're somewhere around 25 assessments per child, which is kind of insane to me. And I don't think that the teachers are really using all of the data that they're given. I think that the big question is, are these assessments helpful for the teachers? Are they being trained to use them? Are these assessments that they want? Not just that they're being held accountable
Yeah.
But are these useful for the school? So I'll stop.
I would like to make a couple of comments in response.
Yeah.
There is a lot of testing. Now, the number of hours, when you add the formative assessments and the other things that are driven by at the classroom level, you may very well be talking about that frequency of tests. The assessments that we see here that are mandated by the state or the district, depending on the grade level, it can be anywhere from 10 to 24 or so hours of testing when you add up the instructional time and so forth, the administration time with that. But then we have progress monitoring and other things that will occur on top of that. My hope is two things. One is we move into computerized testing, that we'll have some opportunities to be more efficient, more adaptive type of tests that would cut down on some of the testing time and allow children to assess at their own pace on some of these. But I also hope that as we get better as educators in our assessment practices in terms of knowing whether children have mastered those standards and reflect that in the grades and that process, that we can be less reliant on some of the other external measures. And I know Robert Marzano talks about the fact that we need frequent feedback, but as we get better at that process, we can hopefully move away from some of the standardized measures. We are right now in two worlds of assessment, and that has caused considerable additional testing, which will go away in 2 years. But and the other side of it is with the move to Common Core and PARCC assessments, we'll be splitting up some of those tests, but we will be doing ongoing testing through the year. And Dr. Register may want to speak to another issue he and I have talked about a little bit, is as we go forward with the idea of autonomy versus accountability on schools. There's certain things that we have no control over at the state level, but in terms of what is non-negotiable for schools, that conversation may alter. And if we have a district assessment that's not being utilized by teachers, we either need to pull that or we need to make sure that we get the training for those teachers, and that is a challenge for us.
So, okay, and just to follow up, so of these tests, when we go to PARCC, so we've got all of these TCAPs, and I know that the DEA is ours, and I know that DIBELS is ours. What is going to change with PARCC? What's coming and going?
Well, there will be a couple of summative assessments. One that's performance-based, about 3/4 of the way through the year. Another objective multiple choice type test very late in the year. And there's some flexibility right now that we're not sure where the state's going on a couple of tests one or two that might be given earlier in the year. But those could replace some of the benchmark assessments if it provides useful feedback that helps us. Right now, none of us can afford to wait to the end of the year to know if we're on track. If those can be scored in timely fashion and give us a feedback, it may do away with our own benchmarks like DEA. We're looking at building our own benchmarks rather than purchasing those in the future if we need to continue those types of assessments. DIBELS is another one we would look at as to whether it fills a need. But my guess is we would want some kind of progress check, every 3 or 4 times a year. Whether the state assessments can do that or not is unclear. TCAP, as we currently know it, will go away and be replaced by PARCC assessments. And to be honest, we're not. The state. Everyone is waiting to see how these PARCC assessments develop, and we're not quite sure where we're going to end up in 2 years in terms of the total testing time.
Ms. Berry?
Yes, I want to go back to your quote. A typical teacher can spend between 1/3 and 1/2 of her class time, that's 50% of class time, measuring students. Now, as a teacher, I'm happy to measure my students if it's going to inform my instruction. What irritates me is when I'm asked to do assessments that don't inform my instruction. And that is the problem with DIBELS. It is said in the manual, it is not to inform instruction. It is to assess students, but it's not to inform instruction. The note here says about the DIBELS is that it It's a 1 minute, it's easy to give. Fluency measure to monitor the development of early literacy and early reading skills. And I would be remiss if I'd ever let an opportunity go by where Dibbles comes up and I don't speak against it, because I think it's absolutely contrary and counterproductive to early reading. I think it confuses children. I think it confuses teachers. And I think it is a waste of our time and money to give that assessment. I think that the teacher responses to the constructive response, or teacher feedback to the constructive response and writing assessments, that's exciting. I mean, those are assessments that make a that make a difference. And it would be interesting to hear that same type of feedback from teachers in relationship to the Dibbles. As a board member, I hear across my district how frustrated parents are with the number of assessments. I hear how frustrated teachers are that perhaps 50% of their instructional time is used on assessments. So I have utmost respect for you, Paul, and I appreciate so much this is not intended towards you, but I just want to share my feelings publicly.
Yeah. And let me clarify, that 50% of the time or a third of time, we're talking about all kinds of assessment, which includes the observations and the notes that teachers are making. But regardless of that, yes, there is a considerable amount of time that is spent with those assessments. We will look at all of our assessments that we have control over in this review process when I talk about non-negotiables and so forth. And I do know that there's mixed research out there with regard to Dibbles, and others may want to speak to that, but we will look at all of that. I have a concern anytime teachers don't see value in something that we've asked them to do. And again, it comes down to, are we utilizing it the proper way? And if it doesn't have value, then it's something we need to look at. But we will have that discussion with our district assessment committee.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Nope. Thank you, Dr. Changus.
Thanks, Paul. Madam Chair, that concludes my report for the evening.
Thank you so much. We will move right ahead into committee reports. Ms. Froeg, Advocacy.
Okay. Our board has already passed a couple of resolutions in the past, and they're right at this time with the new legislation coming through. And so that I will not bore people to tears by reading the entire resolutions. I will just hit a few highlights. We did pass a resolution on January 10th, 2012 against a statewide charter authorizer. And here are a few of the highlights there. Charter schools have had a presence in Tennessee for more than 10 years, with local boards serving as authorizers. Charter schools are public schools, and their failures or successes are attributed to the authorizing school system. Local boards thoughtfully and systematically review a charter application. Despite dozens of appeals to the state board, only a handful of local decisions have been overturned. Local boards are held directly accountable through the electorate. And the elected Board of Education, which has a physical presence in the community, the elected Board of Education has a physical presence in the community, and an appointed body has no such presence. And then our summary of this resolution is as follows. The Metropolitan Nashville Board of Education opposes any legislation to create a statewide or alternate authorizer for charter schools that would bypass locally elected boards of education and usurp the responsibilities entrusted to them by their constituencies. The voucher resolution we passed on October 25th, 2011, and hitting a few highlights from that. Vouchers remain controversial and unpopular with no proven benefit to student performance. The Constitution of the state of Tennessee requires that the State General Assembly, quote, provide for the maintenance, support, and eligibility standards of a system of free public schools, end quote, with no mention of the maintenance or support of private schools. Vouchers eliminate public accountability by channeling tax dollars into private schools that do not face state-approved academic standards, do not make budgets public, do not adhere to open meetings and records laws, do not publicly report on student achievement, and do not face the public accountability requirements contained in major federal laws, including laws that protect students with special needs. Private schools may deny admissions to students for arbitrary and unstated reasons. Vouchers have not been effective, this is a key point, at improving student achievement or closing the achievement gap. Vouchers leave many students behind, including those with the greatest needs, and they drain funding from public schools. Vouchers give choices to private schools, not students and parents. And in Davidson County, about 1/3 of school funding is from the state, yet proposed legislation requires vouchers for half the per pupil expenditures, creating a funding drain with a greater negative impact on Nashville schools than on most other districts. And so those resolutions were previously passed and they still stand. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Youth Safety Summit.
Ms. Shepherd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Youth Safety Summit Committee met last Friday morning at the bright and early hour, 7 a.m. This year's Youth Safety Summit event will happen on Saturday, April the 6th at McGavock High School. Registration begins at 8:30 and the program will be from 9 a.m. until noon. Our keynote speaker this year will be Craig Scott from Rachel's Challenge. Rachel Scott was the first student killed in the Columbine shooting, and her family has been spreading her inspiring message in Rachel's name. This program is a very powerful one, and I think it's one that you won't want to miss. We have several breakout sessions in association with the theme. Mr. Tony Majors is working on providing our moderators for these breakout sessions. They're all going to be wonderful, and I think he's not here tonight, but I want to thank him for his efforts in doing that. We will be posting more information as well as the link to Rachel's Challenge on our MMPS website as the event draws closer. Our next meeting will be Friday, March the 1st at 7 a.m.
You're done. Oh, okay.
And I'm done.
Okay. All right, Budget and Finance, Mr. Pinkston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to remind everyone on the board and certainly members of the public that we are entering the budget season for Metro Nashville Public Schools. The calendar in the month ahead, month and a half ahead, really almost 2 months ahead, includes 4 key meetings. Please mark these dates. Monday, March 4th at 3:30 p.m., Budget and Finance Committee will meet to receive from staff and management and then discuss the first draft of the proposed fiscal 2013-14 operating budget. A week later, almost a little over a week later, Tuesday, March 12th, also at 3:30 p.m., we'll meet to continue discussing that proposed 2013-14 operating budget. On Tuesday, April 2nd at 5 p.m., there will be a public hearing on the proposed operating budget, followed by a Budget and Finance Committee to continue our discussions. And then the final meeting, presumably, will be on Tuesday, April 9th at 3:30 p.m., immediately preceding our regular board meeting that day for a final discussion of the proposed 2013-14 operating budget and presumably, hopefully, by then, approval, at which point we'll move that document on to the mayor for his consideration. That concludes my report.
Thank you. And I do not have a board chairman's report tonight, so we will move into announcements. Dr. Gentry? Dr. Brannon? Ms. Spearing?
I have several. We had a community meeting last Tuesday, February the 5th at Dan Mills, and I want to thank Patty Yon for hosting that and the PTO for providing the questions that helped us to move that meeting. Dr. Register was there and had a lot of questions that he was able to address, and the parents were very appreciative that you were there, Dr. Register. Thank you. We had an opportunity to discuss safety and assessments, and I want to thank all of the staff that was involved. I heard from, well, actually, at that meeting, we had 3 city commissioners from Goodlettsville. And I've also heard from Mayor John Combs, who is the mayor of Goodlettsville, and also Commissioner Zach Young, who asked me to convey his appreciation, their appreciation to the board for including Goodlettsville Middle in our capital improvements. Much needed building, as we've discussed, long awaited, and it's one of the oldest schools in Nashville, so we look forward to that moving ahead. I also want to send kudos to Dr. Susan Kessler at Hunters Lane. She is presenting at a major conference called the Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development. Only about 1/3 of all submissions are accepted by ASCD, and her assistant principal, Andrew Davis, and Academy coach, April Snodgrass, are also presenting with her. And I want to continue shining the light on Susan Kessler. Last year, she initiated the Hunters Lane Cluster Conference, whereby teachers train teachers. And she drew the best teachers from the Hunters Lane cluster and focused on closing the gap. The strands included such things as differentiated instruction, strategies for teaching ELL students using data, using technology, numeracy, and literacy strategies. All teachers, kindergarten through high school, are involved in this. And Susan is planning another such conference this year on February the 18th from 8 to 3. And I have accepted Dr. Kessler's invitation to be the keynote speaker for that conference. As you know, heart disease is a major problem in America. Every year, 715,000 Americans have a heart attack, and 600,000 of those die. And so in recognition that February is American Heart Month, and in support of the mayor's emphasis on exercise and fitness, I want to extend an invitation to my colleagues to join me for the Country Music Marathon on April the 27th. Now, you can do the whole marathon or you can do half. I'm going to do half. I see someone in the audience, Wendy, that probably will do the whole marathon, but I would love to talk with you about that if you're interested in getting in shape for this marathon. Thank you. That concludes my announcements.
Thank you. Ms. Kim? Ms. Shepherd?
I do have a couple. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of being at Pennington Elementary School with the Pearson Foundation and the World Wrestling Entertainment and First Lady Chrissy Haslam as they encourage the students to be reading superstars. In addition, the We Give Books Readmobile was there, and all the students were given a book and had their pictures taken in front of the Readmobile. The students were exceptionally attentive. They were very good, and you could tell that they truly loved reading. And Councilman Claiborne and I attended the event together, and we had a fabulous time with all those students. And I would like to give a huge congratulatory shout out to the McGavock High School boys basketball team for winning the District 12 AAA championship. By being the champs, they earned the top seed in the tournament, and they will place Hunters Lane on Saturday at Cane Ridge High School. Go Blue Raiders. Representative from the McGavock Cluster Coalition, 2 students from the McGavock High School Freshman Academy and I will be at the program at the Donaldson Hermitage Chamber of Commerce this coming Thursday. We're very excited to be invited in front of this large group of people to spread the word about all the great things happening at McGavock High School. And last but not least, I attended Dr. Register's Parent Advisory Council meeting last night at the Martin Center. Mr. Fred Carr and Tony Majors did a great job in giving timely information on keeping students in school safe. And Dr. Register had a lot of questions asked of him, and he did also a really good job, particularly about spring intercession and Common Core curriculum. It was a really good meeting, and we had a really good turnout, so kudos to you, Dr. Register.
Thank you.
Done.
Mr. Pinkston?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Really briefly, I'd like to use my announcement time to make notice of my intent to bring a motion at our March meeting. As a new board member, I feel like we've gone through an awful lot in a very short period of time. I've been really pleased to see that embedded in all of these conversations is a real commitment and desire to improve student achievement. No question, we are headed in the right direction, but the reality is that for any given grade or subject, we're still only at 30 to 40% ballpark in terms of the number of students who are academically proficient or better. At that rate, it's going to take a long time for us to reach the levels that I know we all aspire to. So the question is, can we instill a greater sense of urgency in the work and challenge all of us to accelerate the pace of change? I would like to have all of us have a conversation about revisiting our policy governance around academic achievement, our board policy around academic achievement. I don't think the policy as it stands is ambitious enough. It's logical in as much as it calls for every student to achieve at his or her optimal level, and it lays out a series of indicators by which we measure performance, but I think we're missing a key component, year-over-year student growth. We also haven't set any expectations around the long-range timeline for improvement. It looks like the policy was last revised in 2010. I think it's served us well. The turnaround that it's happened is really admirable, but I would like to work with Dr. Register over the next month or so to formulate a motion that's realistic but ambitious. And kind of what I'm thinking preliminarily is that we ought to just set some goals for year-over-year student growth and maybe articulate an ultimate goal. Maybe think of this as our version of a moonshot, that by 2020, all of our middle school and high schoolers, as in 100%, ought to be on the path to career and college readiness. That is a stretch goal, any way you look at it, but the worst case scenario is we get there and we don't make it on time, but we still may have gotten farther along than we would have had we not challenged ourselves. So again, I'd love for us to develop this collectively, maybe if it's possible, spend some time at the board work session talking about it, and I'd love to hear others' thoughts, but I just wanted to plant the seed tonight and look forward to having more conversation in the future. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Hayes.
No announcements. I'll echo my appreciation of the notion of a motion and continued study. I would encourage you to go back and look at I believe it was May, and Dr. Changas could outline this presentation that he gave around the administration's goals, where they outlined what they thought the timeline was, and that really mirrored the state's expectations, which my assumption, my contention at the time was we expected more. So I certainly welcome that and would encourage you to take a look.
Thank you.
Ms. Pro?
Just to address Will's comments, I'm the governance chair this year, and I think we've all recognized that all of our policies need to be thoroughly reviewed. And my intent is to go through each policy within a one-year period, revisit it very carefully. And we are going to be having a governance committee meeting prior to our next board meeting. And so I think that's a good time to start this discussion. And sort of you guys can be thinking about which policies you think that we might want to change or create new policies, and we can start having the discussion then. And then I have just one quick announcement, which is that we'll be holding our next community meeting on February 25th at 6:15 at West End Middle School. I'm proud to say the parents have requested that we have a meeting again this soon, and it will be for the Hillsborough cluster with Mr. Hayes, Michael, I don't know what to call you guys, and my cluster, the Hillwood cluster. That'll be the focus, but Dr. Register plans to be there, and we're hopeful that we can have some great discussion.
Thank you. Dr. Register, any announcements? Okay, sure.
I'd like to remind all science and math teachers of senior students to see the counselors to apply for the Bernard Harris Scholarship through the Council of Great City Schools. The deadline is in April.
Thank you. Dr. Register, any announcements? Okay, I just have a few, and then we will wrap this up. Reminder that Wednesday, February 20th is the TSBA Day on the Hill at 11:30. The same day, 11:30, the same day as the class meeting. If you have not submitted your RSVPs and would like to attend, please let the board staff know tonight. Also, our next work session is scheduled for February 26th. It will be on human capital. I encourage you, all board members, to submit any questions or requests that you have for information to the board staff by Monday, February 18th. This will allow our presenters adequate time to prepare for the work session. This Saturday, February 16th, at Fisk University, there will be an education summit led by Representative Harold Love Jr. I will be in attendance, as well as several other community organizations around the community. So if you are, it will begin at 9 a.m. If you are available and can come out, please do so. On February 21st, the Antioch High School Alumni Association will meet at the Antioch Community Center on Blue Hole Road beginning at 7 p.m. One other thing that I think is pretty fascinating, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with DigiGirls. DigiGirls is coming to Nashville to Tennessee for the first time, and there will be, I'll read this so that I don't mess it up. Microsoft, in partnership with Nissan North America and Middle Tennessee State University, is hosting 100 female students for DigiGirls Day at the Nissan North America offices in Franklin, Tennessee. DigiGirls high-tech camps purpose is to dispel myths about what it means to have a career in high-tech industry and give girls a chance to experience firsthand what it's like to develop cutting-edge technology. The programs stress the importance of education and demonstrate how skills in math and science can help advance technology. The girls are exposed to industry senior executive speakers, community leaders, tours of technology labs and other product groups, product demos, and hands-on sessions. This event is open only to the first 100 girls that apply. So if there are any high school girls in your districts who want to apply, they can go online. The web address is www.eiseverywhere.com. Now, again, this event is being held March 2nd, and there are only 100 spots available for any of our girls, and I learned this morning that they are right now at about 30 to 40 already filled. So the sooner that you get in, the better off you'll be. Also, as a reminder to board members, February 25th through March 1st is Read Me Week. If you have an opportunity to go out and spend some time in one of the classrooms in your schools, please do so. It is absolutely the most fun you will ever have in your life. And one final thing, two final things I want to leave you with, but one, in celebration of Black History Month, I found a quote that has spoken to me in so many ways, but in the last few weeks it really has meant a lot to me. This is a quote by Rosa Parks. "I didn't know I was making history. I just got tired of giving up." And that quote means a lot to me because it has a lot. It says a lot about where we are as a board, what we're doing, and what we're doing personally in our lives. So remember that as you go forward. And final thoughts. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Ms. Brogue.
Meeting's adjourned.